out there, it's Emily with the Wild Seed Field Museum, and I'm here today with another episode of the Quarantine Folk School. So the idea behind the Quarantine Folk School is to connect people with knowledge about resources that are readily available. A lot of it is food related, but there's also art, crafts, a lot of different things that you can do. So I'm out here on my parents' farm. There's another series we've been working on called the Spencer Acre series, which is focused all on the work that they do. So we have some videos coming up on dandelions, violets, and redbuds. Mom has been making jelly out of all three. So we've been out in the yard a bunch, picking all kinds of things, and then also planting the fields, getting ready for summer. And I've been harvesting a bunch of nettle lately, so that's been pretty fun too. I hope to have a video about that coming soon. So what inspired this video was a hike that Maya and I went on the other day, and we found, I kid you not, about 20 pounds of Dryads Saddle. And I want to say that I always leave about half of what I find, so there's about, another 20 pounds that are there in the woods. Mushroom hunters will debate on whether you should harvest all of it or not, but I strongly believe on leaving a lot, just because we don't know what other animals might be relying on this, or insects. So I want to make sure that there's what they need out there too. So I go ahead and leave quite a bit. I have another video coming up on how to harvest, how to find Dryads Saddle, so make sure to look for that. I'll go in depth about all of this. And you can find wild mushrooms in the city. I find them all the time, but you need to really look out for where you harvest them from and make sure that it's not next to a road because of pollution, and also know the ground a little bit if it's a ground mushroom. Dryads Saddle grows on trees, so it's a little less questionable in that way, but do be careful in parks. Make sure that things have not been sprayed, so that's something to look out for. And always with wild mushrooms, be 100% on what you eat. The same with all types of plants. There's a saying out there: there are bold mushroom hunters and there are old mushroom hunters, but there are no bold and old mushroom hunters. So it's a little one to take to heart. Anyway, have fun, enjoy. We're going to talk about how to make spicy jerky, how to make mushroom powder, and then how to fry them up. And these recipes are good for lots of types of mushrooms. Not everything works this way, but it's good to get a few of these things under your thumbs so that later on, you can experiment more. And as you know, Wild Seed Field Museum is all about experimenting and doing a lot of research, talking to lots of other folks. And we're here to tell you that this is possible. It's possible to learn these things. These are old skills, old traditions that I think it's important, maybe now more than ever, to share these things with our communities and people in our lives. So enjoy. So how to tell age with your Dryads Saddle. Color can be a determiner. So the younger specimens are a little darker color, and the older they are, the lighter they get. So you'll notice this bigger one is older and it's lighter. With Dryads Saddle, age isn't determined by size. Sometimes you can have a pretty big Dryads Saddle that's actually pretty young. The way you can determine age is by pore size. So we'll look at the younger specimen first. And if you take a look here, there's hardly any pores right here at all. This is the pore. And then if you look at the surface, it almost looks like scales. They still look pore-like. They're definitely not gills, but they're very close together. And next we'll look at the big one, just so you can see the difference. So here the pores are huge, and then let's take a look. They are more spread out. You can kind of run your finger across them. And the texture of this is much more like spongy and pliable. Okay, the middle size one has bigger pores than the little one, and it is more spread apart. Now this is another pretty tender mushroom, so it's easy to break apart. It's not very rubbery. This would be an awesome specimen to eat. And this big one is as well, as long as you use the outer edges of it. So And sometimes I'll get these home and they won't be very good, but there's a lot of things you can do with them, and I'll talk about that as well, what to do with those specimens. So let's compare just by putting them all three together, and you can kind of see the difference with the pore size. Oops. So here we go, we have all three together. And as you can tell, there's a difference. There's a pretty big difference. All right, so pore size is the determiner of age for Dryads Saddle, as well as color, not necessarily the size. And please do not just harvest the little bitty baby mushrooms. They do get much larger and they're still delicious. It's really worth your time just to wait until they grow a little bit bigger. And if you do leave a little one, know that it's going to produce spores and it'll be back next year. So if it's a spot you regularly go to that you don't think you'll be back to, just leave it. I've also noticed that other animals eat Dryads Saddle as well. So anytime I'm harvesting them, I'm sure to leave at least half of what I find, just because I want to make sure they reproduce, and you know, I really would love to see some other animals benefiting from eating them. All right, so here we have about 4 pounds that's processed. The longer, thinner strips are going to be for jerky. The middle ones are for kind of a pickle mixture, and then the little ones that are chopped up I will be sauteing. So I'm going to kind of angle this a little bit. They're pretty good sized piles. So what I did is, while I cut them, went ahead and separated them out into piles. These are the leftover parts from this harvest, and I will be using them in paper making. All right, so you need 1 pound of mushrooms. I went ahead and prepared mine ahead of time. So the next step is to boil water, put the mushrooms in, and then bring it down to a simmer for 15 minutes. You can add salt to the water if you like. It'll help get out any bugs that may be in there. Once your mushrooms have simmered for 15 minutes, you'll want to take them out of the water and lay them out on a paper towel to soak up some of the water. For step number 1, you'll want to combine 2 tablespoons of olive oil with a half a cup of either tamari, soy sauce, or Bragg's liquid aminos. I'm using Bragg's because I want a gluten-free recipe. Next, you'll want 1 tablespoon of liquid smoke. Next, I'm adding a 1/4 cup of maple syrup. And do make it sure it's maple syrup and not a high fructose corn syrup blend. All right, so next you'll want a tablespoon of garlic powder, a tablespoon of sriracha, and either 2 tablespoons of sriracha or half a tablespoon of cayenne. If you enjoy Cajun flavoring, you can go ahead and add a teaspoon of Cajun spice and a teaspoon of black pepper, and that'll give it a little bit more zing. Put your mushrooms in some kind of low baking pan and then cover them with the marinade. And I like to soak them overnight. And make sure your mushrooms are totally covered. You can kind of move it around if you want. And just set them out. So this dehydrator comes with suggestions, and I think the 135 is good for mushrooms. It takes between 4 to 6 hours. You want to kind of keep an eye on it, and you're looking for, you know, kind of a nice crispy mushroom. So the lengthiest part of this process is probably just putting the strips on the dehydrator. You want to make sure to space them out pretty well and straighten them out. And, you know, doing this process again, I would probably make the strips a little bit bigger, but they do need to be around the same size as each other so that they dry about the same rate. So after just 1 hour, they've cooked down a considerable amount. This recipe says 4 to 6 hours, so I'm going to keep an eye on it. I kind of like mine to be a little bit chewy versus crispy, so it really depends on the consistency that you like. So you'll want to experiment with this a little bit and maybe kind of sample them as you go. All right, let's take a look and see what we have. This is at the 3 hour mark. Ooh, so they're still pretty tender. Really nice consistency actually. And I did try them a second ago and they taste really good. I'm probably gonna let them go a little bit longer because I do want them to not be quite so soft so they're easier to store. All right, the jerky is done. It's been 4 hours and the texture is incredible. Flavor is really, really good. I think the addition of the Cajun spice is a winner. So I did this at 125 for 4 hours. So if you're wondering how long, that's how long I did it. The thing I would change is I would probably have bigger strips to begin with, but you know, small strips are nice too. It'll make an easy addition to some dishes. You know, I don't know, I'm happy with this. This is a great product. So this is how much we get with about a pound of mushrooms. So it's really good, really, really good. All right, so I went ahead and processed these. I decided to go ahead and cut them into thin strips. And the next stage for these is going to be drying them out. So this is going to be made into mushroom powder that I can add to food later on. So I am putting the Dryads Saddle in a dehydrator. Notice I have really thin strips. And these are pieces that will be made into a mushroom powder. You can get a dehydrator at a thrift store. That's where I've found them in the past. I actually got an Excalibur, which is an awesome dehydrator, at a thrift store about a year ago. All right, here they are after drying for about 6 hours. So you want to make sure that they're nice and crispy. All right, so I'm going to be grinding some dried Dryads Saddle in a coffee grinder to get mushroom powder. Let's see how this works. So you want to add just a little bit at a time. And then wait for the powder to settle before you open it up, or you'll get mushroom dust all over the place. So I'm kind of waiting for the fog to clear. You can lift it up a little bit and see if it's been long enough. Oop, nope, I can see a little dust coming out. So I'm still waiting. Maybe about 30 seconds is how long you're gonna wait. Okay, and let's take a look. Awesome, so we have a powder. And you can make it finer if you want just by grinding it longer. So in the end, I ended up with about half a cup of mushroom powder, which I'm super excited about. These were the Dryads Saddles that were too tough to eat. And I think dehydrating is a really good solution for this. You would use this just like you would any spice, maybe a little bit at a time. I've heard it can be added, you know, with flour to recipes too. And it has a whole lot of flavor. So this is a really, really good one to have around the kitchen. Okay, so we're doing an egg bath before we put the mushrooms in the flour, adding a little bit of milk. Get the batter going. So the second part of the setup is to get some flour going, and this is gluten-free flour from Bob's Red Mill. It's the 1-to-1 baking flour. All right, so we put salt and pepper on the mushrooms, and then we're gonna have them go through the batter, starting with the eggs into the flour. All right, so here we have some butter and canola oil frying up, getting ready for the battered mushroom. So once they're fried up, be sure to add some salt and pepper to taste or any other spices that you like. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you learned a lot, and maybe we'll try out some of these recipes at home. They are transferable to different types of mushrooms, so you might experiment, see what you can come up with. Please don't forget to subscribe. That helps us out a lot. And leave comments, share the videos with your friends. Yeah, happy foraging.